Something is about to shift. And when it does, you'll finally understand why it took exactly as long as it took. A decision has been handed down. Not today, not this week. Before that. In the back rooms of a place that has no camera, no human witness, no paper trail the system can trace, and that decision has your name on it. Not the name of someone who looks like you, not the name of someone who seems more prepared, not the name of someone who seems more deserving. Yours, the name your mother gave you, the name you sign on the dotted line, the name someone calls out when they really need you. The decree has been issued. And this video reached you because heaven doesn't send a summons without a recipient. Stay until the end of this video. What was decided changes what you're going to do today. I know what you do before you fall asleep. It's not prayer in the sense of resting. It's not letting the day go. It's taking inventory. You lie down and your mind opens a list. What still hasn't arrived? What was promised and hasn't shown up yet? What you tried, what you prayed out loud in a moment of genuine faith, what you declared with conviction in front of the mirror and then went to the window to wait. And the silence just kept going. That list never ends because every time you try to cross one item off, two more pop up in its place, and you close your eyes carrying the weight of things that don't exist yet in the visible plane, but already exist in the weight they carry. You don't fall asleep next to rest. You fall asleep next to the inventory, and you learn to do this alone. You learned not to tell anyone the real scope of the list, because when you once told someone, they tried to help with practical solutions for things that weren't practical problems. They were matters of destiny. And matters of destiny don't get solved with well-meaning advice, so you folded the list, put it somewhere it wouldn't bother anyone, and learn to carry it in silence with an efficiency that would impress anyone looking from the outside. I know you learned to say "I'm fine" in a very convincing way. It's not a lie. It's protection. You sent that answer with a hand that trembled a little, with a chest that felt heavy in a way that didn't have a proper name at that moment. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video, a proper name at that moment. And the person on the other end accepted it, because "I'm fine" sounds stable. And you needed stability, even if it was only on the surface of the conversation. So you held it together. You folded what you were feeling and put it somewhere it wouldn't bother the people around you. And every time you did that, you got a little more skilled at holding it, and a little more alone with the real weight. Hit like right now if you're still standing while carrying all that. The like is your public amen. Heaven registers what you confess out in the open. You also know what it's like to watch someone else move forward and feel that thing that doesn't have a nice name. It's not pure envy. It's something more complex and more honest than that. It's the question with no clear recipient. The "what am I doing wrong?" you ask into the empty air of the room. You look at someone else's path, and you don't want their path. You want to know if yours is going to lead somewhere too. If what you're building in the dark is ever going to show up. If the faith you exercised with no visible result was exercised in the right direction. And the comparison isn't with the person. It's with the evidence. You want evidence, and the evidence hasn't arrived yet. And there's the mirror, early, before anyone else wakes up, before any performance of the day begins. That moment when the mask hasn't been put on yet, when your face is just a face with no social function. You look, and the face looking back hasn't put together the day's version yet. It's just you, no filter, no prepared argument, And in that moment, sometimes a question comes that you don't like to form clearly because you're afraid of the answer. Was I chosen for something? Or am I just convincing myself? You're not leaving here without an answer to that question. Before the end of this video, you're going to receive 3 things. The first, the understanding that external silence is not an absence of movement. It's the interval between the decree and the manifestation. They're completely different things, and the difference between them changes everything about how you interpret what you're living through right now. The second, a protocol. 3 steps that don't create the decree, because it already exists. 3 steps that turn passive waiting into active positioning. Not motivation, positioning. The third, you're going to be able to declare your own name as someone who was called. Not because you deserved it more. Not because you prayed with the right technique. Because you were chosen before any effort of yours entered the equation. I placed you here because this word is for you. The decree you're about to hear was not cancelled by any night of inventory, by any moment of doubt, by any morning when you asked yourself if you were just convincing yourself. Close your eyes for a moment before continuing. Not because something dramatic is about to happen right now, but because what comes next is for those who are listening with their spirit, not just with curiosity. Some signs have reached you in recent months and you didn't know their names. You tried to name them with the names the system provides, the names reason accepts, the names that don't scare you. From now on, you're going to know their real names. The first sign, interrupted sleep between 2 and 4 in the morning with no apparent physical cause. You wake up, not with a nightmare, not with physical pain, not with an external noise. You wake up and don't know why. And you lie there in the dark with a vague sensation that you should be doing something, paying attention to something, picking up on something happening on a frequency that your daytime mind can't reach. You tried explaining this as insomnia, as anxiety, as accumulated stress from a tough week. You tried fixing it with melatonin, with breathing exercises, with relaxation techniques, and none of those explanations got to the root, because there was no physical root to find. It was your spirit processing a movement that your mind didn't yet have the vocabulary to name. Heaven doesn't sleep. And when a decree is in motion, the early morning hours are the busiest of the invisible process. What woke you up at 3 in the morning wasn't anxiety. It was participation. The second sign, a growing discomfort with environments that used to be enough. The job that paid the bills and sufficed now doesn't suffice anymore, but you can't say you're dissatisfied because technically nothing is missing. The circle of friends that was comfortable now feels too small, but you can't say your friends changed because they didn't. The routine that worked now creaks somewhere you can't quite identify. You tried to fix this discomfort. You tried being more grateful, more patient, more content with what you had. You tried convincing yourself that the dissatisfaction was ingratitude, that the discomfort was emotional instability. And the discomfort didn't go away, no matter how many times you tried to reclassify it as a character flaw. Because it wasn't a problem to be solved. It was tuning in progress. You were being adjusted to a different frequency, and the old frequency started to sound like noise because you were picking up something clearer, even without knowing the name of what you were picking up. The third sign, dreams about places you've never visited, but that left you, upon waking, with a strange feeling of familiarity. Like you'd already been there, and the place knew you from before. Not terror, not disturbing strangeness. Familiarity. You woke up and tried to locate the place in some memory, some movie, some recent conversation, and you couldn't find it. Because it wasn't the past rearranging itself during sleep. It was advanced recognition of territory already assigned to you. You weren't dreaming of the past. You were receiving fragmented images of what has already been prepared but hasn't yet appeared in the visible plane. Heaven sometimes shows the destination before the path is clear. Not to confuse you, but so that when you arrive, something inside you will already know you've made it. The fourth sign, a sudden attraction to specific scriptures or words that arrive out of context in a way normal logic can't explain. You open your phone to do something else, and your eye falls on a verse that has nothing to do with what you were doing. Someone in a casual conversation mentions a word or phrase that resonates in a way disproportionate to the context. A song starts playing, and a single line stops you in your tracks because it hit exactly something you hadn't yet articulated. You had the feeling you were being communicated with, but you weren't sure by whom or how to classify it without sounding like someone projecting meaning onto coincidences. But it wasn't projection. It was transmission. When heaven has a decree in motion, it uses everything in the recipient's field so the message doesn't get lost. What arrived out of context was the decree communicating fragments before revealing the whole. The next sign is the hardest one to hear. It's the one the enemy spent the most time trying to get you to ignore and reclassify. The fifth sign, the quiet certainty that appears without rational reason in the middle of maximum pressure. You're at the peak of the crisis. Finances, relationships, health, the project that won't move forward. All of it at once. There are objective reasons for panic, and in the middle of all that, without you having done anything to produce it, without any meditation technique or specific prayer, a quietness comes. Not euphoria, not denial of the pain or the gravity of what's happening. Quietness. The feeling that something was sealed in a place deeper than circumstances can reach. The conviction that none of the things happening have the power to undo what was established. You tried to ignore this certainty because it seemed irresponsible to feel peace when there was objective reason for anxiety. It felt like self-deception. It felt like dissociation. But that quietness wasn't weakness disguised as spirituality. It was confirmation. It was the Spirit recognizing the decree even when your eyes couldn't see what the decree promised. The irrational quietness in the middle of maximum pressure isn't naivety. It's evidence that something deeper was touched. Type 3 in the comments if this word reached you. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you won't work if your attention is divided. There's a man in Scripture who was called a mighty warrior while he was still hiding. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon while he was threshing wheat in a winepress, crouched down, hidden from the sight of the enemies who dominated the region. And the first thing the angel said wasn't, "Why are you hiding?" or "Get up and stop being afraid." It was an identity declaration. The Lord is with you, O mighty warrior. Gideon hadn't done anything mighty yet. Gideon was literally in the position of someone who hides. Any outside observer would have described that man as fearful, withdrawn, with no evidence of leadership. But heaven didn't proclaim the Gideon who was showing up in that moment. It proclaimed the Gideon who existed in the decree before any action confirmed it. And Gideon did exactly what you do. He questioned, "My Lord, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his miracles?" He used the absence of evidence as an argument against the identity being declared over him. And the angel didn't answer the argument. He went back to the identity. "Go in this strength of yours. I have sent you." The answer to doubt wasn't more proof. It was more decree. And there's a plant that does this in a way science still finds hard to describe without sounding impossible. The giant bamboo spends its first few years showing virtually no visible growth to anyone looking from the outside. Someone who plants a giant bamboo seed and looks at the spot where they planted it for the first 2-3 years sees dirt, sees silence, sees apparent inactivity. If they didn't know what was there, they'd conclude nothing worked. But below the surface, the root system is being formed to an extent and depth that will make possible a growth of nearly 100 feet in just a few weeks when the structure is ready to support it. What looked empty was the densest period of preparation in the entire life cycle of the plant. The most critical part happened invisibly. Heaven invests more time in the root than in the stalk, and it calls chosen what hasn't yet appeared, because the invisible structure is already complete. The Gideon hiding in the winepress was a mighty warrior before he'd won a single battle. The bamboo underground was already giant bamboo before it had shown a single inch above the soil. Type Gideon or root in the comments. Which one do you identify with today? Let me pause for a full minute. You carried years of waiting with no external evidence that anything was moving on the plane that matters. You kept believing even when the belief seemed irrational to those around you who knew the objective facts of your situation. You recognized signs that the rational system tried to classify as coincidence, as wishful thinking disguised as spiritual perception, as emotional projection from someone who needs hope, and you didn't completely give in to that reclassification. You kept going. You made it here. And that alone is a confirmation that needs to be named. You didn't arrive here by accident. It wasn't the algorithm that brought you. The algorithm was the vehicle. Something coordinated the vehicle. What you're about to hear is not a human title. It's not the result of effort or achievement. It's what I call you when I speak to heaven about you. I saw every night of the inventory. I saw every morning in the mirror before anyone else woke up. I saw when you wanted to stop believing and chose to keep going even with no visible reason to. Your name is registered, not as a pending request under review, as a completed decree. And here is who you are within all of this. You are the decree bearer, not someone who will be chosen when circumstances improve, not someone who will be called when you're more prepared. Bearer. Present tense. Right now. I saw every night you wanted to end the belief and chose to continue. Not because you had proof that justified continuing. Not because reason supported it. Because something inside you couldn't fully stop. That act was registered in heaven as faithfulness, not as poorly disguised stubbornness, not as an inability to accept reality, as faithfulness. Every night you held on, even without evidence, was counted. You didn't know the name of what you were doing. I knew what this identity authorizes. Stop asking permission to occupy what has already been assigned. Stop waiting for someone in the human realm to validate what heaven has already registered. The decree exists independent of validation. The bearer doesn't need anyone to confirm what they carry. They carry it because the decree is with them, not because someone agreed it should be. You are the architect of the invisible, the one who built when there was no audience, who formed when there was no immediate result to validate the process. I saw the structure built in silence. The character formed without anyone applauding the process. The faith exercised without immediate result, confirming it was worth exercising. The root developed where no one was looking, where no one knew construction was happening, while the external system waited for you to show the result as proof that there was a process. You were building the foundation the result will need so it doesn't collapse when it appears. I was there while you built in the dark. Every brick that seemed to be going nowhere was seen by me and registered as part of the structure. What this identity authorizes. Stop treating the preparation period as wasted time that could have been used more efficiently. The invisible is not the opposite of the real. It's the foundation of what will appear. Everything that will appear with the ability to bear weight needs a structure below it that is more solid than what appears. You were building that structure during the years when it looked like nothing was happening. During the years when others advanced and you were in a winepress threshing wheat and wondering where the miracles were. You are the name on heaven's registry. Not a candidate. Not an applicant. A registered name. You reach this message not by algorithm, not by platform coincidence, not because you clicked the right place by accident. I coordinated the timing. I directed what you saw before you got here. What opened your attention to this subject in this specific week? What was happening in your spirit that made this title sound like a summons and not just another video? It wasn't coincidence. It was direction. Your name isn't on a waiting list where someone is still evaluating your application. It's on a different registry. One that isn't erased by wrong timing, by unfavorable circumstances, by doubt, by any of the nights when you asked yourself if you had been forgotten. What this identity authorizes: start acting like someone who has already been summoned. Not with arrogance, not with the performance of someone who wants to show they were chosen. With the specific quietness of someone who knows the decree doesn't need to be defended in debate, doesn't need to be explained to those who can't see it, doesn't need to be justified before any human tribunal. Only inhabited, lived from the inside out. Type in the comments which identity your spirit responded to first. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. What's coming in the next videos is for those who stayed. Now the protocol. This one has a name. The Received Decree Protocol. 3 steps. Not to create what doesn't exist. To receive what has already been established. Step 1. Be silent for 2 full minutes. No music, no screen, no podcast, nothing in the background. 2 minutes of intentional silence. And in that silence, name out loud, in a low voice, what you've been carrying in waiting over the last few months. Don't ask. Don't craft a prayer of petition. Just name it. I've been waiting for this. For this. For this. Naming is different from asking. Someone who names is acknowledging that the object of waiting exists and has form. Someone who asks is still uncertain the object exists. You're not in the stage of asking. You're in the stage of naming what has already been decreed. Recognition is a spiritual act distinct from petition. Step 2. Say out loud, once your own name followed by was chosen before asking. Not in a whisper, in a speaking voice at the volume you'd use for a conversation with someone sitting next to you. Your name was chosen before asking. This is not a declaration of human self-confidence. It's a declaration of receipt. You're telling your own spirit, in a voice your own ears can hear, that you've stopped applying and started inhabiting what has already been designated. The spoken voice carries different weight than thought. What you say in an audible voice to your own spirit carries authority that internal thought doesn't carry in the same way. Step 3. Write on paper, not on a screen. One concrete action for today that aligns with the identity you received. Not with the result that hasn't arrived yet. With who the decree says you already are now. If you are the decree bearer, what action today honors that name without waiting for the result to appear first? If you are the architect of the invisible, what will you build today even if no one sees it? Even if no metric registers it? Even if the action is too small to seem significant? If you are the name on heaven's registry, how will you act today as someone who has already been summoned and not as someone still waiting for confirmation of the summons? The paper matters. What's on the screen lives on the screen. What's on the paper passed through your hand, passed through the physical act of inscribing. The action you write on paper today is not a performance commitment. It's a declaration of alignment. The confirmation sign is not euphoria. It's not chills or intense emotion. It's quietness. A specific serenity that doesn't depend on circumstances confirming it. If euphoria comes first, wait until it settles. The quietness after euphoria is more solid and more reliable as a basis for action. Act from the quietness, not from the emotion. Type received in the comments when you finish the protocol. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be launched against what you received here. Not as a possibility that may or may not happen, as a certainty, as a known strategy because it's effective and has been tested before. The first tactic, false chronology. It arrives disguised as mature reasoning, realistic analysis, lucidity about time. The voice that says the decree has an expiration date and that date has passed or is passing. That it's too late for what was promised. That if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. That the time that passed is evidence that heaven changed its plan or that you missed your window. This voice isn't using the argument of time to inform you about reality. It's using time as leverage to make you let go of what you're holding. Heaven's decree doesn't have an expiration date on the human calendar. Gideon waited longer than seemed reasonable. Joseph waited longer than seemed fair. The bamboo waited longer than any investor would have considered sensible. The second tactic, comparison as evidence. It arrives disguised as discernment, as the ability to read signs, as spiritual intelligence. It will use someone else's visible progress as proof that you were forgotten, passed over, or not among the truly selected. Look where she is now. Look what he accomplished in the same time frame. Look at their timing compared to yours. The comparison isn't showing you other people's success so you can be inspired. It's trying to convince you that other people's progress is evidence of the absence of a decree over you. It's not. Each decree has its own timing and its own path. The bamboo doesn't look at the rosebush next to it and conclude it's dead because the rosebush already bloomed. They have different cycles because they have different structures. The third tactic, merit as requirement. This is the most sophisticated one because it sounds completely like humility. It arrives disguised as spiritual maturity, healthy self-awareness, responsibility. The voice that says the decree only activates when you deserve it more. When you're more ready, when you've resolved that specific issue first, when you've overcome that area of weakness, when you've reached a level of character that justifies what was promised. It sounds responsible. It sounds like someone who takes faith seriously. But it's inserting a condition the decree doesn't contain. The decree doesn't say when you deserve it. It doesn't say when you're truly ready. It says you were chosen before asking, before any effort entered the equation. Maturity is not a condition for activating the decree. It's fruit of the process the decree initiates. Gideon wasn't ready when he was called mighty. He was hiding. Readiness came after the call, not before, and the internal enemy. The voice that comes right after the protocol. Right after this message, when the environment returns to normal and the day continues with its demands. That voice arrives softly, not loud, not aggressive. It says in a reasonable tone, maybe it's just excitement of the moment. Maybe you're convincing yourself of something you want to be true. The quietness you felt might have simply been the effect of a well-constructed narrative. This voice doesn't sound like an attack. Sounds like your own maturity trying to protect you from self-deception. But it's trying to reclassify the quietness as projection, the decree as desire, the received identity as a suggestion you accepted emotionally. When it arrives, don't fight it with arguments. You won't win this internal debate. Simply recognize that it's her, that she came to fulfill the function she always fulfills, and return to the quietness the protocol left behind. The quietness is your anchor point, not the debate. Type protected in the comments if you recognized any of these tactics, even before I finished describing them. Now, place your right hand over your chest. Both feet firm on the ground, solid, aware of the surface. Close your eyes if the environment allows. Take a deep breath. Once, you're going to release 3 things now. Not so you never feel the weight those things carry again, but so they stop defining who you are. So they stop occupying the space that was designated for something else. The first, the weight of the nightly inventory. The list of what hasn't arrived yet, which you open before sleeping and close without being able to cross anything off. You carried it carefully, as if the responsibility to remember was yours. As if stopping remembering would be the same as giving up. But keeping the list doesn't fulfill it. You can release the weight of carrying the list. What's yours is kept by the one who doesn't forget and doesn't need you to remind him. The second, the performance of stability. The "I'm fine" sent with a hand that trembled a little. The composed face in environments where it would have been more honest to let the weight show. You weren't lying. You were protecting yourself and protecting those around you from a burden that wasn't theirs to carry. But the cost of holding it together on the outside while things were moving on the inside was high. The effort of appearing whole while being reconfigured consumed energy that could have been elsewhere. You can release that effort now. The third, The silent comparison that had no recipient. The question, "What am I doing wrong?" asked into the empty air of the room, with no answer, no target, consuming energy that should have been directed elsewhere. You can release it. It wasn't a question the air could answer, and now the decree has already answered in a way the air couldn't. I saw you in the nightly inventory. Every item on that list passed through my knowledge before it reached your mind. I was not absent on those nights. I was present in a way your closed eyes couldn't see. I saw the "I'm fine" you sent when you weren't. I was there when you folded what you were feeling so you wouldn't overwhelm those around you. You were not alone in that moment, even if you felt you were. I was in the room. I saw the mirror early, before anyone else woke up, before the mask of the day was put on. I saw the question you didn't want to form clearly because you were afraid of the answer. Was I chosen, or am I just convincing myself? I heard that question before you finished thinking it. And the answer existed before the question existed. I chose you. Not because you were ready. Not because you overcame every weakness. Not because you deserved it through consistent faith. Because the decree precedes. It precedes every night of inventory, precedes every moment of doubt, precedes every morning at the mirror where you asked if you had been forgotten. I saw every one of those nights and every one of those mornings as acts of faithfulness. You stayed. I registered it. Your name is on heaven's registry, not as a candidate under evaluation, not as a pending request under review. As chosen. As a completed decree that doesn't wait for human approval to be real. Your mind is covered. Your relationships are covered. Your timing is covered. The area this video touched is covered. The preparation period that seemed empty was the most important period of the process. It is done. Go. As someone who has already been summoned and whose name will not be removed from that registry. Now say out loud, before writing any comment, before doing anything else, my name is on the decree. Say it in a spoken voice, at the volume of a real conversation. My name is on the decree. It is done. What was delivered here has been delivered. What was sealed cannot be unsealed by circumstance, by enemy tactics, by an internal voice disguised as maturity. If this message reached you, type "done" in the comments. Not because the channel needs the number to grow, but because the decree deserves to be confessed openly, and heaven registers what you declare in public with the same weight with which it registered what you carried in silence. There is a person in your contact list right now who is doing the nightly inventory without knowing the name of what they feel. Who is sending "I'm fine" with a hand that trembles a little. Who is looking at the mirror early before anyone else wakes up and wondering if they were chosen for something or if they're just convincing themselves. Don't send it to the group. Send it to them. One person. By name. Today. And if they want to go beyond what this video delivered, the link is in the first comment, waiting for them the same way this video waited for you. You are not the same person you were when this message began. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.